Hello and welcome.
Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, one of the most valuable hours of your day. I'm Michael, the MCCC for today's adventure. This week, we are continuing in the final week of the self discovery course by our very own Tim Flynn on his Foundations of Self Discovery. And today's show is creating the space for success in your life. And we're talking about accountability in particular. With that all said, let's meet our other fabulous hosts. We got a bunch of them today, almost all of them. First, Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator.
Hello, nice to be here.
Willow, our trauma consultant.
Hi, everyone.
Deirdre, our development strategist.
Hi, glad you're here.
And Dennis, our freedom facilitator.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for spending your time with us.
And if you are viewing this show live and have any questions or comments, please feel free to input them and we will try and answer them as we go through the show. We're going to start off with where we left off on Monday. I wasn't here for that one, but we were talking about accountability. And I don't know, does anybody want to lead us into this discussion?
Sure. We basically summed up what the course has taught us over the last several weeks. Starting on January 9th, we've been doing this Tim's Foundations of Self-Discovery course every week, trying the one exercise a week. I think we took a break for Valentine's, but that's about it. And so now we're at the last step, accountability. So working through values and how you spend your time and practice. And so basically, I think what we're doing this week is we're taking the practice from last week and bringing it to this week and making sure that we continue to be accountable for the things that we're striving to succeed with. So, who wants to
Anybody
take it
else
from
have any
here?
feelings on that?
Well, I looked up the meaning, the etymology of accountable or accountability, and it's the state of being answerable. And to be accountable also means to be liable, to be called to account, to count, to sum up, to put together. So that's like that's where I wanted to start, like to define the word, and then of course what it means, to us, to each one of us. What does it mean to be accountable to you? What does it mean to be accountable for what? Accountable for what? Your actions, your words, your thoughts. The people you manifest around you, the place you're in right now. There's a whole, again, like a whole holistic approach how we can view that. How do you see accountability? Is that like a big topic in your life? So has it been kind of like on the back bench?
We're accountable to raising excellence, showing up every week and hosting this show and having good content.
Yeah, I would
is
say. Oh, I'll
Yeah,
defer to
you go.
Deirdre. Go
I
ahead.
was going to go, what does accountability mean to you? But you go.
Well, I was going to say, I think, the world suffers from a lack of accountability. If you look at the politicians and the business leaders and the bankers of the world, essentially they're unaccountable. And that's kind of why we're in the situation we're in at the macro level, is because, a lot of things, the power structure is such that the people at the top aren't held accountable for the actions they take. But that's not an example that we need to follow. We need to do the exact opposite. And if we do that, we get a much better life.
And we
And
become autonomous.
absolutely.
To take it from a different perspective, I just had this thought that, well, is it actually possible to be not accountable? Because if you look at it from a perspective of, some people call it karma, or like you reap what you sow. Like, is it possible to throw some seeds in the soil and to not get the plant, that those seeds will bring forward? So from that if you take it
Depends on
from
the
that
soil, I
perspective,
suppose.
yeah, I mean, it can, maybe nothing won't grow, you won't water it, whatever. But like if you throw a certain seed and the conditions are right, then you cannot put like a pumpkin seed in the soil and expect like I don't know, a sunflower to grow. So from from the
Right.
accountability viewpoint, it's like, whatever you put out there, you are going to be held accountable to your deeds, to what you bring forward, to your actions, and through your thoughts, and through the footprint that you leave behind, like every day, in every moment of your life. So is it even possible
To
not
not
to be
be.
held accountable?
Well, you know what they say, that the thoughts are like, if you're thinking certain thoughts over and over, those are the ones that form the words that come out of your mouth, and the words that come out of your mouth actually inform your actions. So,
Yeah, and I would say that, in the PC world that we live in, we don't say
who
what
lives
we
in a
mean,
PC
and
world?
that's also, I don't, but in a greater society, people are trained to essentially not say what is true. They would rather, kind of fluff it up a little, I guess. But in doing so, you know, we forget how to really identify what is what, and how to keep people accountable, even ourselves. And I certainly see this a lot in a lot of people, even a lot of successful people, when they make a commitment to do something. Or it used to be, and I think this is probably somewhat true. I know, just from my own experience, but it seemed like people's words and their handshakes meant something more 50, 100 years ago. And those were very simple things to hold people accountable to. And now,
But you're talking
it's
about the
pretty much,
concept
well,
of
you didn't get it in
honor.
writing.
This is all
That's
about
in a
honor.
that's also in a period of time where your reputation was on the line. That was your currency. So right now in the current society, you don't technically need a community to be able to survive.
You
You can
can
make
just be a
money.
liar and it's all good.
And not
Well,
even
I
just
think
that, but like you don't
that's part
necessarily
of
have
the,
to make deep connections to be able to survive. So your reputation isn't necessarily on the line because you don't have a community or people to hold you accountable in the first place.
yeah, that kind of speaks to the whole idea of a social support network being dismantled. Is as people become, you know, separated from their own reputation, from their own accountability, they are losing that social support structure that is very fundamental to their own mental strength and, capabilities.
And it's being replaced really with a social media, so-called network, or network of so-called friends or so. And I'm saying this being totally aware of that we are we are online right now too, and we're using those networks to communicate. But then raising excellence, to us, like, from my perspective, speaking for myself, would mean, to also bring some accountability to even that, to use those media that we have been given in a way that is, beyond, let's say, maybe what they were actually constructed for, or what they are replacing in most of our lives, which makes it a much more shallow, in which probably lets us lose the real connectivity that we have if we engage in real world relationships with living people that we know, and that can easily, or more easily, hold us accountability to what we promised, to what we said, to who we to who we are.
Yeah, and that's also the, we mentioned reputation, but that's also a form of trust, and us, deriving our expectations based on what other people have done in the past is how we learn how to trust. And, being able to allow people to be accountable, or witness accountability, or hold people accountable, is how we can determine if we can trust them, if they can trust us, those kind of things. And that's another type of social currency that I think, is certainly diminishing in our current society at a huge cost to to people's ability to like loneliness, for example, and to socialize and to get their communicate what their
That
needs
is
are
so.
and stuff.
That is so. To me, that is so strange, right? So, even though like we're meant to be so connected, so like I can. My daughter today, she thought it was cool. So on the phone, and she goes, "Who are you on the phone to?" I'm like, "Oh, a friend in the US." She's like, "Really?" She's like, "That's really cool, mom." I'm like, "Yeah," and it's like it's tomorrow for them. Like it's yesterday for them. And oh, for us, it's yesterday. And she said, "Mom, that's so cool. I didn't know you could do that." And look, she's 10, and she doesn't have any smart devices, so that was new to her. I felt kind of nice that I was the one that told her that. But loneliness is like it's like higher than ever. How can that be? There's
Well, I
something
wanted
wrong
to
then.
absolutely there's something wrong. I wanted to touch on what Mike was saying about like trust, having accountability in your life, being able to sustain that requires trust. And a lot of times, I know I like to bring everything back to trauma, but every single person I think who has ever been through the public schooling system knows that when you are being held accountable, when someone says that word, when they imply that you're being held accountable, it is never paired with a good feeling of, you know what? I did make that mistake and now I know how to change it and I feel empowered and I can do something different. No kid ever walks away from those situations feeling like that unless they have a really
No.
awesome teacher and they catch them at just the right time or they have that teacher's special attention. Um, if you're being held
I felt
accountable, even at home, a lot of times, but especially in the school system, you're being punished.
But as
yes.
adults, why would we
But
choose to be accountable? Like, what is the payoff for being
because
accountable?
because because we would choose to do that. I would argue in order to increase our survivability. But in the world we live in today, that is kind of being replaced by the kind of systems that we're part of, that we're born into, a state system. Like there's healthcare, there's pension, there's this and there's that, which is being provided of like independently of if you are accountable to your word and to who you are to your immediate neighbors. So you kind of depend on a system, on an artificial construct, to get your daily needs covered to a certain
yeah,
extent,
but that
and you don't have to
that
live up
dependent
to your word
that
to your neighbors.
dependency's like built in. Like when Dennis said, what was the definitions that you said again, Dennis? To hold one accountable, to be called to accountability. So that means if I haven't, from my experience with schooling, if I haven't made sure that I've done it absolutely correctly and everything is absolutely perfect, I'll get shamed, humiliated in front of peers, and then it will be mentioned about, oh well, you did that one thing that one time incorrectly, so I'm just going to base you on that level from now on. So why should I kind of build that character in myself if I'm taught that no, if I just did it how I was told to, then the dependency is rewarded.
Yeah, I can say, speaking from living here in Mexico and learning how this culture works, it is one in which, community is the problem solver. There's no problem that isn't solved as a group problem. You just say the words that there's a problem and somebody will come to help you. And
That's how
it
it's supposed
is,
to be. I mean,
yeah, and
that's
that's
true about the
that's
autonomy community. That's true about our Raising Excellence group. You just say the word and we're here.
That's also one of the first lessons that infants are supposed to learn. They cry, they need something, someone
yeah.
brings it to them. So community reflects also the deep lessons we were supposed to learn as infants.
Yeah, and the fact that we didn't learn that is something that, like you said, Willow, the trauma. This is the society that we live in is what I would like to call the trauma economy. It's all about the traumas that we've dealt with, and everything that has been, all those things that we've suffered through and are suffering from have been monetized into ways in which they make money off of it. But it's going in a very bad direction. And the thing is that we're isolating ourselves, and we don't have community when things like this coronavirus breaks out. If we have community, I mean, if there's one place I'd love to be in as far as coronavirus is concerned, it's Mexico, because everybody knows everybody. Nobody's going to let anybody just drop dead, and nobody's going to run away. They're going to take care of each other. And we're going to, they'll find out if it's just like a normal flu or if it's something much worse. But they're not just going to, I mean, because I think that's another thing of, I might be on a kick here on Mexico, but or Acapulco in particular, but they have a respect for death as much as they do for life, and that makes it so much more valuable in each way. They understand the values of that, and so it's like, I would rather die than live a crappy life.
Well said.
And so that's, it's like every day is, man, I gotta live a good life. I gotta help other people live good lives.
I wanted to
make such a big difference.
I wanted to go back to what you were saying about basically what I heard was weaponized trauma, like commercialized trauma. I wanted to point out that holding yourself accountable, if you have no one else to hold you accountable and you start doing it yourself, you start making changes in your life, it can really isolate you. It can make you lose your support system, what you think is your support system, because it will start to make them angry in a way. So that's another way, because you're holding yourself accountable, you're reflecting where the other people are not holding themselves accountable, and they're not okay with it. They think they're okay with it.
Yeah.
I take it more from that they're used to seeing you in a certain way, and you're so I'll be developing and I'm growing as a person, and then that anger kind of comes from, I don't think it's jealousy or anything. I think it's more like, why are you changing? That means I need to look at my world, and I don't want to look at my world right now. I don't like what I see. I just keep everything the same. But that's not nature. Nothing stays the same.
Nothing.
So is it fair to say that in order to create space for success in our lives, accountability is one of the foundational pillars?
Yes, because you have to, if, like for me, if I wake up and I don't do my journaling and I don't do my exercise, and come 6 p.m. I'm cranky and crabby and I want to be fed and I don't want to listen to anyone else's music and I don't care what anyone else has to say, and I'm in a bad mood, that's my own fault. I have to say, I didn't make that space. I didn't create that time or allot that time for me to do this and hold myself accountable. That day, that wasn't really the important thing. The important thing was doing what I wanted to do and try to figure that out. That's part of holding yourself accountable, and that's why I said, when you're trained in school to think that being held accountable means punishment, you're going to avoid it. When it means figuring out what you're doing and if you want to continue doing it or not, it's a different perspective on it.
And also not getting stuck in a place where you hit yourself over with a piece of stick, like for days and decades, for things that you plan to do but they didn't work out, you couldn't do them. But just for me, it means to be accountable means like, okay, to recognize also if something that I had prepared for or that I wanted to achieve, like I didn't get it done, to look at it without emotions, to say, okay, this didn't happen, and what went wrong, what could I do better, and to move forward from there, but to not get stuck also, because the aim is you're holding yourself accountable in order to overcome a barrier that you have in your life. So if the holding yourself accountable is actually creating another barrier and another point of getting stuck, then it defeats the purpose of it.
Yeah, something Mike was saying about how society society that we live in right now is so brutal, and I remember my shock when I read the name of the current architectural era. You know, like you have Baroque and Renaissance and whatever the different styles of architecture. The current era that we live in is called brutalism, and I think that word can really encompass the whole society. Is brutalism, you know? People are mean, they're not kind. But that's not true in reality, because the human nature is to be kind and gentle and supportive and loving toward all the other humans. So it's just somehow, I don't know, through the school system or through society or whatever, we're almost encouraged to not be so kind. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I have a theory that right now, with so many people being in various stages of trauma and healing, you're in a survival mode. Now, have you ever seen a cornered animal? They are brutal, feral creatures. It would make sense that this would be the, what did you say? It was the brutalism age of art.
I read it in an article. It was crazy.
That's kind of, that makes sense.
Well, they were showing pictures, right? They were showing pictures of stuff that was built in the 17th, 18th, whatever century, and stuff that was built now. And there was a caption, brutalism, and there are these straight, square lines, no ornamentation whatsoever, just really like cement. And it was just like, oh, okay, I see what you mean. That's definitely brutalism.
It brings opportunity as well, isn't it? Because if you know that, then that's the call of the time, and you know, everybody or a lot of people are in that mood, and you kind of harness your own kindness.
You're an island and a sea of brutalism.
I mean, then that is a niche right there, you know, and there's certainly a market for it. If people cannot find it, you know, elsewhere, then they will certainly look your way. If you can, you know, transmit that to other people, then that's certainly a niche market.
Yeah, but even think about how we dress, like how suits look. I mean, men's and women's suits, like the office people from downtown, they really look like the buildings. They're very square and smooth, right? It's not like this. And I know I'm eccentric, right? What?
Cogs in the machine.
Yeah, but like, and this, like this shirt, this is nothing in comparison to what they did in the 19th century. I mean, those women had like embroidery and bows and shit everywhere. Not shit, probably not shit, maybe silk. Embroidery, bows, and silk everywhere. And so, and it was like, people put so much care and effort into the things that they did. Like even the tools of everyday use, where, you know, like a spinning wheel or a knife would have a beautiful handle. And like, why don't we care so much about our lives anymore? Why is everything so brutal?
What I love about what you just said is the caring part. Because if you're you're putting that much care into yourself, does that mean you're going to put that much care into me when we talk and make engagements?
When I'm trained to put that much care out, when I hold myself to a higher standard of care, when I understand the 8th principle of the natural law, it being care, that's when I can hold myself to that standard. That's when that door opens for me. If I'm completely oblivious and just a cog in a 9-to-5 machine, I may not even be aware that accountability is a thing or a beneficial thing.
So isn't that a perfect example of creating space for success in your life? So, you're talking about the clothes and the way, you know, you dress, the way you give yourself, the way you communicate with others, the way how you care for yourself is reflective of how, you know, you care for others. You know, and then some time ago we had a discussion like, is there even a difference between, you know, yourself and the selves of those around you? So you know, like as above, so below. So the inside reflects the outside and vice versa. So making space for success on a physical level, you know, might be to create your own clothes, you know, to dress yourself differently. On an emotional level, you know, how can you
to be true to your spirit.
Your emotional space, you know, what kind of you know, how can you extend the range of emotions that you can not only feel, but that you can also express to those around you. How can you make space, like in your physical environment? Is there something you need to throw out? Is there some relationships you have to get rid of, or whatever it is? And how can you make space holistically, on the inside and on the outside, in order to you have to
I have a
throw away
question
some of the
for
water
you
in
all.
order to get new
I have a
clean
question.
water.
Go for it.
What do you think? Holding space, creating space, is that a very feminine thing to do?
I think it depends on the situation. For certain conversations, I can hold the space a lot better than say my male counterparts that are in the given situation. I don't want to generalize and be like all men, but then there's other spaces where like it's a guy talking about a guy issue or something that I don't necessarily understand, and a male can hold the space a lot different. Like in the podcast, I'm great at holding space when I'm on a one-on-one. I'm doing a one-on-one conversation with someone. I'm not good at holding space when I'm in a group of people, because then I'm also fighting for my time to talk. And so that, well, I mean, it is it's not fighting, but it's like hunting in a way. It's like, was that a pause? Was that a long enough pause? Are they pausing to breathe?
I'm pausing to breathe. They took a breath. I'm gonna get in there.
Sometimes, some conversations, if you know a person, you have to catch them on that last breath and be like, I am talking now.
I've seen that so many times, but I haven't finished yet. Hold on.
And it is even harder with the computer because there's a delay. So there's an extra pause that you have to account for. And sometimes I'll be in computer mode, and then I'll wait a few moments and someone's like, are you listening to me? I'm like, oh, yes. I just was waiting. I just wanted to make sure you were done talking.
Yeah, well, I want to make sure you're done. So I don't cut you off. I don't interfere. I want it smooth.
Yeah. And other times, I'll just cut people off.
All right, I've got a couple points. Number one is accountability. So is really about a mindset. There's, obviously two potential polarity mindsets. One being that it's bad, and that's probably what most people think of when they hear the word accountability, as Will pointed out. But other people could look at accountability as almost like a level of professionalism and skill and expectation that they're not only delivering for themselves, but delivering to other people, so that when they put on their uniform or they put on their, their profession, being that they're accountable for being that profession, other people have expectations of what they can deliver for them. And so that, so that's kind of the mindset we want to get people to adopt, is one in which accountability means that you can expect more from yourself as well as from other people. And in fact, you can alter other people's experience in a positive way in which they can learn from you. And this is, I think, one of the key things that I think needs to be mentioned is this is really a tool then, because if we can demonstrate accountability either to ourselves or to other people, and they react in a negative fashion, we can already diagnose their mental state and be aware of where they're at more clearly, because we're holding ourselves accountable, and we're also, making them aware that accountability is the way that get things done, and they're not getting things done. And so that's probably what they're reacting negatively to, is the reminder that that they could be doing better than they are, and it's really their own responsibility.
Absolutely. When you were talking about accountability becoming a skill and something to be valued, I thought of another thing that it can turn into. After you get past the being held accountable is scary and dangerous and alarming, it becomes a new form of intimacy. And this can be on a platonic level. It can be an intimate friendship where you don't know if you're crazy or not. You're literally thinking this in your mind. You're like, am I crazy? Did I imagine this? Am I just being illogical? And you have the friends who have told you straight up when you're being rude, when you're being distant, when you're being negligent on your duties, and you say, hey, will you take a look at my case and tell me what you think? And you can trust what they have to say.
Yeah.
I noticed this in my marriage, actually. There's a certain safety now where I can say, did that really happen? Did I think something happened that it didn't? Did I misunderstand what was going on? And I have that. It's almost like someone, not necessarily that someone else provides me, but it's an external way of providing myself space to say, wait, is what I just experienced what actually just happened?
Hey, Sam.
It's a weird sense of safety.
That's the
Hang on.
no, it's the importance of feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of feedback, Sam, your microphone's doing something very strange. Would you mind unplugging or disconnecting and reconnecting? Because there's an echo. I can hear you twice. I could hear her like a second time. I don't know.
How about now?
Oh, keep talking.
How about now?
I don't hear the weird echo anymore.
Oh, it's because I moved my mic closer to my face.
I don't know, I could hear it twice in my headphones. Like it was once, and then like a second delay was a second one, like really quiet. It's very interesting.
Because my mic was so close to my face, I think it was just picking up. But
yeah, maybe.
What were we talking about?
You're talking about with your relationship.
A very important point.
Oh, just
how accountability can lead to intimacy.
Well, it can become you can relabel it from being someone's holding me accountable to, oh dear God, thank you. Someone is holding me accountable. Someone's giving me some information that I can.
But it has that trust has to be like you have to trust that he has your best intentions. He's holding that for you. Because if he's just going to say, because there's assholes that could take advantage of that and just totally gaslight you. No, that didn't happen. That's you're at risk of that. But if there's a trusting relationship and he's holding, he's got your best interests at heart, then you can develop that even more. That can be like this whole new different level of intimacy built around that trustingness, and you're seeing a lot of benefits from it.
Well, ultimately, sorry, go ahead.
Well, imagine a business person that opens his books to his suppliers or his subcontractors or the people that he does business with and or contracts, and essentially, I've done this in a lot of cases where I say, hey, we've got a dispute here. Let's sit down. Let's go through the paperwork. Let's read the stuff, and I'll open my books. I'll whatever I paid for, let's find out, where I can maybe help you out if you think I'm trying to screw you or something like that. And 99.9% of the time, just doing that is enough to come up to a solution that is much more agreeable than anything else. Most of the people that are suing each other, lawsuits and so forth, won't do that. And that's kind of one of the other reasons that I think the government and the system benefits from is the fact that people aren't holding each other accountable. They don't know how to hold each other accountable. So now they ask for the service from the government or the police to come in and hold them accountable.
So it sounds like so by opening the book up and everything, you just went like this. You're just like, okay, here, let's open this up. Let's just go. That whole openness. It's like, you could hurt me right now, but let's just hit that. Well, that doesn't happen. people have to get to a point to be able to do that. If it's kind of just like, okay, I'm just going to do that, it's quite scary.
But
Yeah.
think
Well,
about our whole
certainly
society.
in the government world that we live in, that's that's just unheard of, to open your books and actually like tell them what how much money you're making or something.
But you also have to be able to trust that regardless of what your enemies or your friends find, that it can't be used against you, or that if it can be used against you, you have a damn good reason for doing it, or an explanation of why you did it, and a plan to change it if it is the wrong thing.
But if you're accountable to yourself and to everybody from the get-go, there wouldn't be a concern like that.
What I'm really hearing is it boils down to three questions. One would be, what do I have to hold myself accountable for in order to achieve X, Y, Z? And the second one would be, what do I want to hold others accountable to in order to, help them as a coach, as a father, as a friend, whatever role, I'm in at the moment. And then the last one would be, what do I want others to hold me accountable for in order for me to move forward in my life?
But I think all of that, it should all just be brought inside. It's an inner game. It's an inside game, not an outside game. I can ask my friends to help me hold myself accountable, but ultimately I am the one holding me accountable for shit.
I don't think it's necessarily an exercise of asking other people to hold you accountable. More of examining what you desire from other people. Like when I work with you, when I come to you with a problem, I'm expecting a totally different way of approaching that problem than I am going to Deirdre.
Obviously.
So I have to hold myself accountable for what I'm getting into, in a way.
Yeah.
For me, it was a really enlightening experience in the course when we did this accountability group. And although I wasn't even part there for a long time, but it made a difference, even just to know that every Sunday or every whatever day, somebody is going to ask me, what did I do in the week? And it's just that, it could be as simple as that. Did you achieve or something? And that's just that. Even having that in the back of my mind, it made a huge impact. And I agree that it's it is an inside game. Like everything is pretty much an inside game if you look at it. But because you can, you wouldn't even have to voice a question, or you wouldn't even have to tell anybody, next Sunday, ask me if I did ABC. But, just by basically by observing and by being aware of others, of how others react, of what they do, what kind of feelings, what emotions, what thoughts come up when they are around, you're already indirectly holding yourself accountable to your actions by observing and by being aware of what others do and how they act.
Yeah.
I had a question for everyone. How do each of you hold each other, other people, accountable? And how does that course, by holding other people accountable, I mean to setting boundaries with how you're treated when you expect other people to uphold this expectation. How do you hold them accountable? What does that look like for you?
Okay, hold on. So are we talking about boundaries, or are we talking about, I can talk boundaries with clients. So I have a client, and boundaries need to be set in place because it's a different type of relationship than what I would have with you guys, what I had with friends. So I would say knowing what my boundaries are, knowing where my limits are, knowing myself. Is that what you were asking? I hope I got that right.
Kind of.
I think that's the first aspect, and then,
it's very similar.
First you have to know it, and then, you have to be able to communicate that. And then there's different ways of communicating that, it might be a look, it might be words, it might be gestures. It depends, I guess, on the situation.
If I was a client with Dennis, and you were teaching me capoeira, and I was kind of just okay, it's past the hour, and you don't, you want to pack up. What would you do? Conflicting your boundary. What would you do?
How do you hold someone else accountable to your time standard, basically?
I turn off the light.
That's what I was asking for. What does it look like when you hold someone else accountable? Because it'll depend on the person. If I know that person needs a lot of comfort, I will very, very gently, like if they did not do a task, and be like, okay, what happened? Did you try? What happened when you tried? So I'd try to be like, okay, well, just tell me what happened. What did you experience when you tried to do this? That's usually my approach. I'm not sure if it's the best.
So I can think of a time where I had to step my boundaries with friends, and I actually didn't succeed. So I used to go to these parties with these friends of my ex-husband's, and one time they were having a conversation, and it was racist. And it was basically judging people by the color of their skin. Oh, people with this kind of skin are like this, and people are like, and I was uncomfortable because I'm not like, I understand that people are individual, and I don't judge them by like how they're dressed or what their, what their skin color is. And I sort of said, I'm not comfortable with having a racist conversation. And they're like, well, it's not racist. Of course, Chinese people are like that. Of course, Indian people are like that. Have you seen them drive? And I'm like, yeah, but it is racist because I know Chinese people and Indian people are great drivers, and it's not like a thing, right? So, and it wasn't just about driving. It was like a whole big thing, right? And basically, they all just made fun of me until I shut up. And I ended up not going back to those parties. Like, I just didn't hang out with those people anymore because I felt so uncomfortable listening to them saying, oh, Chinese people are like this, Indian people are like this. And they wouldn't even call them Indian people. They were calling them like, I don't know, it's Polish, slang, right? Like equivalent of ragheads or something like that. I was just very uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Well, that is a way of establishing boundary, right? Not like removing yourself from the scenery.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about earlier, when like you start to hold yourself accountable. That means you have to voice when you're feeling uncomfortable. You have to say, hey,
this makes me feel uncomfortable.
I'm not comfortable right now, and this is why. When you start doing that, you reflect to other people that their behavior makes you uncomfortable, or the interaction is making you uncomfortable, and it really upsets.
But how do you do that? How do you do that in Agnieszka's situation, where there was a group of people and she was the one that she was the only one there? How does she do that in a safe place where she's going to be able to walk away from that? Okay.
But I didn't give in to them.
Confront a group.
I did confront a group. I didn't. I confronted. Well, I guess I confronted the group, but I didn't walk away. I didn't change my opinion. They made fun of me, but I just sort of held my ground, and I said, "Yeah, I'm not cool." And they're like, "Well, there's more of us than you." And they continued with the conversation, and I ended up leaving the room, going to hang out with the kids or whatever. But the point is that sometimes leaving is a boundary. Is setting up a boundary. Sometimes you just have to remove yourself.
Yeah.
And it is creating space for success.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's called clear communication, and that's a good thing as well. That's the thing, is it's not just an inner game. It is an inner game that reflects an outer game that reflects an inner game.
But no,
they're both the same, because you have to be able to communicate to other people, because it's like something that if you're doing it for yourself, it's also going to be reflected in how you deal with other people. And it's the same way if you deal with other people, it's probably going to be reflected in yourself as well. So if you're holding people accountable for what they say they're going to do, and they say they're going to be there Tuesday at 8:00 in the morning, and it's 9:30 and they're just getting there, and you say, what's going on here? You said 8, it's 9:30, that kind of thing. But if
they'd be like, buddy, you're in Mexico.
People, you've got to also, well, if it's Mexico. I know you were enjoying your life. Hey, it's all right. But if that's what you're going to expect other people, then you're going to expect that for yourself too. And that's kind of the thing, is being able to communicate that is also an important thing. And that is where you come into writing rules and defining your boundaries and saying what you will accept and what you won't accept is clearly, an effective way to get things started. And that's another reason that conflict is such an important opportunity, is because like when people are in conflict, it's usually a misunderstanding about boundaries. You know, who crossed the boundary?
Okay, can I
Oh, I
ask
didn't know I
something
was crossing the
controversial? I want to ask something really controversial. So this morning in the clubhouse at Autonomy Clubhouse, somebody shared an article about a girl in Australia who was a vegan, and she was upset at her neighbors cooking meat on the barbecues, and she wanted them to be punished and close their windows or whatever when they're cooking meat. In any case, so on one hand, she's stating her boundary, but it's inappropriate. Like she's going into other people's spaces and complaining about things, as opposed to removing herself from the uncomfortable situation and going to run in the park where there is no barbecue smell.
She's not really setting a boundary. She's not holding herself accountable. She's saying, I am vegan, therefore I shouldn't have to deal with people who are not vegan. I shouldn't have to deal with the consequences of everyone else who is not vegan, and trying to control everyone else's environment instead of holding herself accountable and saying, I am vegan. Not everyone else is going to be. That means that I have to make different choices to be different, to be this different label.
Well, so apparently she was like jogging along the street, and she didn't like that every second house had a barbecue going with meat.
I had this issue in Korea. It's literally the reason I learned the first words in Korea. 미안합니다 means I'm sorry. Because these little Korean ladies would just come running out of their houses and start yelling at you in Korean, regardless of whether you could understand them or not. They just figured yelling at you was enough, which most times it was. But I had this one lady who came down when we were having a family barbecue between all of the military families and the kids, and her words verbatim were, "Your food stinks. Your burgers stink." And I was like, well, your kimchi that you ferment on your back porch also stinks, but you don't see me come into your house and saying, ma'am, I'm American and I don't like this smell. Please turn it off. Like, you'd think I was an idiot and entitled, but they did it all the time, where if something was not smelling, and I'm sorry, I've walked down the streets and I love Korea, but it is a place where you walk down the street and you say, oh, that smells good. Oh, no, that did not smell good. Like, within 3 seconds of each other, you're like, no, yes, no, maybe.
But they don't notice any of those smells. They only notice the one that's upburnt, which is yours.
Yes.
So on a larger scale, who benefits if most people are not able to state their boundaries, to defend their boundaries, and to set their boundaries? Who benefits from that on a larger scale?
That means we need a babysitter.
Everyone. When you enforce boundaries, everyone benefits. I will do this around random children in the grocery store, where, like, all of a sudden I'll just be really interested in making sure that I knock something off the rack, and I'm like, oh dang, I was so clumsy, and I go pick it up and I smile and I look at the kid because they're messing with something and they're just throwing stuff all over the store. Half the time I see the kid turn around, see me do that, and then they do the same thing as I do. Like, I didn't even have to talk to them. I don't have to have any interaction except for being in the same space as someone